Big. Deep space. Burns. The ring of... So with that being said, welcome back to another episode of 217 South Mills.
Hey, we're brought to you by Cabin Coffee Altoona, located at 2922 in Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
Did you just stumble? And Pizza Del Rey in Eau Claire.
Yeah.
You stumbled a little.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a cold. Sorry, I had to swallow halfway through there.
I gotcha. And I do have to apologize. I talked to HR. I will take full ownership. There was no podcast last week. There was a lot of walking around, the majority by me.
A lot of heavy breathing.
I stepped over a cord. Something got nudged, and we were radio silent for 54 minutes. Yeah. So I apologize, folks. We're going to try and recap some of the more pertinent stuff we talked about last week, and also talk about the Super Bowl, and we got some crazy stories that are just going on out there. Let me start off first, before we get into the Super Bowl and how a lot of people think it's rigged, which that's where we're going to start. How about in 2025, how we just stop talking about everything that happened in 2024? So we still have drones flying over New Jersey, to my knowledge. Don't talk about them anymore.
Don't you have any shitbags over on the East Coast you can call over there?
I don't know why they don't go over there, and I'll use the proper terms for social media, just eliminate them. But, yeah, I mean, between that, how about in the last month, how many planes have crashed?
Well, I know one with the helicopter.
We had the one with the helicopter.
Yeah.
There was an emergency evac after emergency surgery procedure where they were bringing a child and his family back somewhere. They crashed. There was a plane in California that crashed. There was a plane that ran into the cart that pulls the plane. A plane ran into one of those. Like there's been, I think in the last week, there's been 6 incidents inside the U.S. with planes crashing. Yeah. Now, that's crashing into a cart. The guy was severely injured, but he didn't die. So it wasn't like it crashed and burned, but there's been 6 incidents with planes. I don't want to get on a plane right now.
Okay.
Just saying.
I mean, maybe you should get on a plane. And maybe, like, obviously right now, it's probably the most conspiracy theory right now, because I think they're talking about it in politics with the amount of shorthandedness in the air traffic controllers, etc. And there's a whole big spiel about that right now that I read recently.
Maybe we should be air traffic controllers. Can you imagine that? We'd be arguing with pilots now.
Why are you putting it there? It needs to be behind here. Yeah.
All right, let's get started. So we got the NFL, we got the Chiefs and I got the wrong piece of paper for me. We got the Chiefs and Eagles, and I've switched my take on this. I do think the Eagles are going to pull this out. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. But is it rigged? That's the question coming out of the AFC and NFC Championship. We got questionable calls. The call with the 2 Texan players that hit head-to-head, and Mahomes is underneath them, I think was a BS call. Needs to be reviewed. I think calls like that has to be a rule change in the offseason, that every call like that has to be reviewed.
Agreed.
But I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I think Kansas City is a phenomenal team, but I think, as we always say, I think Philly's just peaking at the right time in their season.
So I had a conversation here at the coffee shop yesterday with a customer who asked me this, and I you're the big conspiracy theorist out of all my friends.
No.
Yo, you are. So I shed a little light on him. He's like, really? I can't believe that it would be rigged. I said, I didn't think it was either. And I talked to to Bill here, and I gave him a little history on you. And I said, if you would have asked him like 5 years ago if it was rigged, and you said no, it wasn't, because I think we had that conversation on the podcast one other time. But now it seems like you're flopping here.
Well, people used to say about the script, and there is the whole conspiracy theory with the logo. I think that's a stretch, because I think. Like they say this year, the logo is mostly red with a little green in it. I mean, the 3 of us know injuries, trades, just luck, right? How that changes outcomes of games to be able to make that happen. But when you look at these calls, and so many calls that go just for one team, the Kansas City Chiefs, and especially Patrick Mahomes, there's another rule that they need to change, is the flopping. And we talked about that, I think, in our deleted episode that didn't have audio, is you can't have a guy like that. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar industry. We've seen how the NBA has gone down and lost money, lost viewers, lost fans. We can't allow that to happen in the NFL, especially with a player. I mean, I believe he's the highest paid contracted player. Maybe not the highest paid this year, but I think he signed a $500 million contract. You can't have a guy like that flopping.
I agree with you, and I think the first time I witnessed flopping is when we had a foreign exchange student with us, and their team was the World Cup, and she was from Belgium, and Belgium was playing in the World Cup, so we wanted to watch. She wanted to watch the game, so I watched it with her. I don't watch soccer. I'm not against soccer. I think it's a tremendous sport, and you have to be a super athlete to play it, but just not something that I watch on a regular basis. But the amount of flopping I saw, and I thought to myself, at least it doesn't happen in like football. That's a real sport. And of course, one that all of us have played football and, have lived our lives to the fullest and got injured and lost body parts and brain cells playing that and committed ourselves to that craft. And I said, at least it never happens in football. And now here it is.
Yeah, but I feel punters have been mastering the art of the flop on the punt.
But are punters football players? Are they football players? I'm not quite sure.
And I agree. And we might get Kevin Stemke reaching out after making that comment. I do agree with you. And I think, and Kevin, I 100% agree, but I also think that's something that was like understood within the game. Yeah. That a kicker, if you come close to a kicker, he's always going to try that. Right. They've been doing it for 50 plus years. Correct. And you just knew if you get close, you better get hands on that ball. Right. Otherwise, there's a chance you're going to get a flag. Right. Anywhere else in the game, it just wasn't around, and now it's being a part of the everyday game.
Yeah, and I understand the wanting to, because you're trying to gain every advantage you possibly can to win the game. I completely understand that, but you look like a complete jackass. And again, you're a role model for kids, whether you want to think you are or not, you freaking are.
There's kids on the flag football field today that are doing that, run the sidelines and pretend like you're going to go out of bounds just because everybody wants to emulate Patrick Mahomes because he's the hottest thing out there right now, which is sad.
I agree.
You know what's driving me nuts?
I'm listening.
I don't understand how a receiver or a running back, how they can fumble the ball. They've ran like on a long breakaway run, right, or a great catch. They're running their tail off, and all of a sudden they want to celebrate at the 1 yard line, and they lose the ball.
No,
are you kidding me?
They dropped the ball.
How is that possible?
Here's my thing. I go back to, I've heard a lot about it this week on social media with Nick Saban talking about mental toughness. And I think that's what that is, mental toughness. And you go back to the Barry Sanders rule that we all grew up watching Barry Sanders highlights. You hand the ball to the official. Absolutely. Now, I understand in this day and age, there's the celebration and this and that. But the art of completing a touchdown, as Barry Sanders proved, was you cross the goal line, you go to the official, hand the ball. You want to do a celebration, then do the celebration. But complete the act of gaining a touchdown by crossing the goal line. And that's nonsense. And I think it's lack of mental toughness.
I think it goes back to Coach Alvarez. Act like you've been there before, and then it's not a surprise that you made it there, because that's what the objective of the game is. And that's what we work our asses off in practice. That is the end result of what we're trying to accomplish. So it should not be a surprise. Yeah, celebrate with your teammates, but the showboating, like I said, and I'll be the first to laugh. It's pretty entertaining now watching some of the choreographed dances, that the Vikings do, But again, like, you're celebrating with your team. Yep. But again, it should not be a surprise that you made it there. That's your job.
I mean, I remember coaching. It was the first day of padded practice. This is what we do. You carry the ball, you hand it off to the ref. You're mentally tough, you're physically tough, and you're emotionally tough. Meaning you mentally don't break down, right? You do the right thing within the rules, and that's obviously sportsmanship.
Yeah, so I don't agree with it. I think it sucks. Any more about the flopping or the calls that are going towards Mahomes and the Chiefs?
The one thing I have a problem with is I feel like the refs every time could call offsides. The NFL has to get that under every time. So you have the neutral zone infractions. You have DBs after 5 years or 5 yards are constantly pulling and on jerseys. Like, every play you could call it. And then, of course, the poor lineman, holding calls. Yep. And then I think about 5 years ago, every helmet to helmet was called, and now NFL just forgot about calling it.
Right.
Well, and here's my take on it is there's subjective and objective calls. Subjective calls, like we said, the old linemen, they hold every play. That's subjective. The DBs hold, and that's subjective. But the objective calls, like Kevin and I talked about the other day, there's so much technology. And Joe mentioned this morning, like we could have cameras in the pylons. We could have, I think there's over 300 cameras at a typical NFL game. You could have a camera essentially at every yard line to look straight across the field to see if there's a first down. You could put a chip in the ball. And when we say chip, we talked about this morning. It doesn't have to be like a cell phone. It could be a sticker, like a half-inch by half-inch sticker inside of the ball that says where the ball's at. You'll know maybe the sticker's in the middle of the ball, and you know if the sticker's within 6 inches, the ball's X amount of inches long, it's a first down or it's not a first down. Like how we're missing that in the NFL. We have the red zone. We have 24-hour coverage. I can watch the Super Bowl from the blimp for crying out loud. I have that view on my TV for the Super Bowl, but we don't know if it's an actual first down or not. Like that's nonsense. And I get back to, I think some of the most important rule changes, which they review every year at the owners' meetings, is 15-yard penalties have to be reviewed. Okay. They're just changing games too much. And like we said, like, yes, I joke about the conspiracy theories and is it rigged, is it not rigged. That's what everybody wants to hear and wants to hear opinions on. But that would eliminate all of that. If you review every 15-yard penalty, there's no more talk about it being rigged. Because that stuff that we saw with Mahomes, with two Texans hitting each other, with Mahomes flopping out of bounds, all that stuff's eliminated because they're all 15-yard penalties. They'll all be overturned, or they should be. Now it comes down to whose bias is making that decision up in the box. Is he working for Goodell? Is he working for the owners? Who's he working for? But it at least reduces the chance of conspiracy theories about cheating.
I agree. And I think that wasn't there just an interview or somebody was talking to Goodell about it, and he just denied that there's nothing with the refs and nothing.
We were talking about that before the show. What I laughed at was Goodell was asked about the officials favoring the Chiefs. Right. And instead of denying it or saying like next question or I'm not even going to address it because it's so much nonsense, he brings up, well, it's sort of similar to when fans used to think the NFL was scripted. I go, you're going to bring up another conspiracy to defeat the current conspiracy? Right. Like that, to me, that seemed fishy. Right. You know, a guy that's been the commissioner for this long, granted, there's a lot of people that hate him, but he knows how to do his job. There's no right or wrong about that. He knows what he's doing. That was not the way to answer that question. That, to me, rose my eyebrow to think, boy, that was funny. Something was funny.
If you'd like fresh roasted cabin coffee delivered directly to your door, go to Cabin Coffee Altoona's Facebook page or 217 South Mills Facebook page. Click on the coffee order form link, fill it out, pick out your beans, and get them delivered directly to your front door. Cabin Coffee Altoona.
Do you feel like in professional sports, though, the superstar favoritism, you know, Brett Favre had it. I mean, you could tell, you know, when he was mic'd up, those refs, I mean, he could joke around with the refs. The normal player can't. Michael Jordan obviously made his own rules. LeBron James now is making his own rules. And I feel Patrick and Mahomes is obviously in that status now.
I definitely think so, but I think that's where the rules have to contain that and limit it. I mean, you can't allow it to happen because especially when you're looking at, I mean, I think it was the AFC Championship in the game before with Lamar Jackson, same exact play. He doesn't get a flag. Yeah. Mahomes clearly flops and does get a flag. Right. It's like, come on. The favoritism. It's just like whether you want to call it rigged, cheating, or just like you said, favoritism to a player that everybody adores. It just can't be part of the game. You're tainting the game by doing that.
But we also talked about how the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and now you have all these Swifties.
I think you're the fan. I think it's Swifties.
I'm not a. I mean, I don't.
I thought you went to the concert.
No,
you didn't.
I mean, I have a T-shirt, but it was a gift. No, but like, there's so many more young people, young female, high school girls, college age girls that are now turning to the NFL because they're showing Taylor Swift every 4.5 seconds in the press box. You know, so these are people like. 99.9% of these new viewers didn't know who the Chiefs were prior to Taylor Swift dating Travis Kelce.
Just to protect you as a friend and co-host of the show. Before we go too much further, are we blaming the issues on football on young women?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. But I got a sense of that's where we were going, that it was young women's fault.
If you tell me that Goodell is such an amazing fucking business owner and he's smart at his job, don't you think that would fall in the caliber of him being really good at his job and making more fans, et cetera, and selling more merchandise and selling more tickets?
Well, see, now you're going down the conspiracy hole. Is that why the officials are maybe coached from a higher up to say you need to give them the call? I'm just saying, right now you're calling me the conspiracy theorist. You're going down the hole right beside me. You're digging and we're trenching together saying they are doing it. Because Taylor Swift is now going to be at the Super Bowl. She was at the AFC Championship game. Yes, viewership went through the roof. Because yes, I agree with all that. At first, I thought you were blaming all the women. Now I understand what you're saying. And yes, I agree with you. But now you're neck and neck in the conspiracy tunnel with me.
Or maybe I'm just feeding you a line of shit to watch you go off the handle because I enjoy watching you go off the handle all the time. So we may be digging holes next to each other, but I'm going to merge with yours and you're going to keep on digging. I'm going to hold the shovel and watch you.
Should we get to page 2 before we get into a 3-hour podcast here? All right, so Kevin brought up rushing this past year. And what I'll start off by saying is the Eagles, and we got two O-linemen and a tight end, which is a glorified O-lineman at the table. That Eagles O-line is phenomenal. And you look at the rushing they performed. Now, granted, Saquon Barkley, he cracked the mold when he came into the NFL and college and everything. But that Eagles O-line is just top notch. And you can see it by the rushing yards and by the way they're performing.
And we talk about the foundation of any football team is the offensive line. I don't care how good your receivers are. I don't care how good your defense is. I don't care. It all starts up front with the big guys. And then we talk about you're able to have a multifaceted offense. If you can run the ball, it opens up your throwing. But if you stop one of those, if you can't throw the ball, they're going to load the box, and you can't run the ball. If you can't run the ball, they're going to drop back in the zone, and you're going to freaking wait for you to throw the ball.
Yeah.
So, your offensive linemen open up is basically the cornerstone, the keystone, Pennsylvania, keystone of your football team. And we talked about, too, how the left or the right guard or tackle that moved over to center.
I forget the guy's name, but
Is it Landon Dickerson, something like that?
Dickerson,
Him. We talked about how hard it is to go from position to pick. Everyone's like, you just move over from tackle to center. It is completely freaking different technique. It's completely different. Yeah. It's awkward. It's like trying to write with your non-dominant hand.
It is.
Because you went from a right guard or
left guard to right guard.
Yes.
Yeah. And I agree. And I was right-handed, or I am right-handed. Right-handed, I right, throw, kick, bat, everything right-handed. And basically I had to train myself to get in a left-handed stance. After I did that for 4 years, trying to get back into a right-handed stance, like you said, it was like trying to learn Japanese. My body's just not comfortable doing it.
I went from right guard to right tackle, and it's completely different technique.
Oh, that's a whole other. Yeah, you're on an island now.
So for him to be able to do that,
yes,
and to be able to produce, because the last time he played center was in college, I think.
Yeah.
But again, you try to find the next man up and try to find a way to win, and that guy is a machine.
Well, not to blow smoke up one of our former teammates' butts, but Dave Costa.
Yep.
That's what, prior to Dave breaking his ankle, I think Dave would have gone a lot higher than any of us would have thought. Dave, honestly, could play all 5 positions on the O-line.
Okay.
He had the size, he had the strength, he had the knowledge, was able to play all 5. It was the ankle that, and again, he went as a free agent, but he still got, I think, 1 or 2 years in the league credited. But, minus that broken ankle, I think broken in like 7 or 9 places, he was a 5-position player, which is extremely rare at any level of football.
Absolutely. The stats with rushing, of the top 10 Russian teams, 8 of them made the playoffs. So there's obviously facts to back that up. So, my prediction, Eagles were the second running rushing team in the NFL. 29 touchdowns. I'm going to have to put the advantage Eagles. I think you got to have a running game. I think Barkley, this is his year. And also the stats, 11 out of the 17, top 17 made the playoffs. So if you're an NFL GM, you're drafting linemen, big athletic linemen, and you need to run the ball. And we all know that the hidden part of running is also your tight ends and and your receivers blocking downfield.
Right.
When you got unselfish receivers that aren't showboating, you can run.
Yes.
And you can run it every down.
Right.
And I do think that's an improvement at the NFL level, or at the college and NFL level. I think we see a lot more of it now compared to when we played. Now, granted, when we played, it was different at Wisconsin. I'm not sure about Bowling Green, but at Wisconsin, we had receivers that would block.
Yep.
You had Chris Chambers, one of the best receivers in college football. That dude would block downfield. But in the NFL, I think that's definitely been the culture change where you want to be on the field, you want to get the ball thrown to you, you better block when it's not being thrown to you. And that is a new shift. And yes, the teams that are running the ball well, their receivers are blocking downfield.
You know, when you go back to Green Bay Packer history, Sterling Sharp, I mean, that guy was the first 400-pound bencher. I mean, and he's playing receiver, and he's crushing DBs. And, he's probably the start of that prototype, just physical receiver.
Yep. Well, we talk a lot about NIL on this show. And I think it was Kevin that brought it up, found an article. Granted, this is based off of the year 2023, which I have no clue how I didn't know about this. Maybe all of our listeners are fully aware of this. But in 2023, I'm losing myself here.
Utah.
The Utah Utes got 100 free pickup trucks. Every scholarship athlete on the team got a pickup truck valued at roughly $50,000 a piece. The donation was well over $5 million that these players got. And this is, as we say every single week, there's nothing anymore that can surprise me about it. We have an article towards the end of this that is going to blow a lot of people's mind that aren't a fan of the sport we're about to talk about. We've talked about who's the girl at LSU, the gymnast, Lindsey Dunn. Is that her name? Lindsey Dunn, I believe. She's valued at like almost $5 million NIL valuation, and she's a gymnast. Now, pretty girl, athlete, I understand, but there's just nothing that surprises me anymore. And just giving a team, I just can't imagine that. Like, we couldn't get people thought we had free scooters at Wisconsin. We had to buy the scooters.
Absolutely. Everyone.
Can you imagine being given a free pickup truck? Like,
dude, as a matter of fact, now that this came back to my memory, I was in a speech class and we had to give a speech, and this young lady gave a speech about how it was unfair for student athletes to get all the benefits that they had, scholarship, first pick in like classes to accommodate them for football practice or whatever sport you were in, and how we had an easier academic pathway than the regular student. And then the scooter thing came up, and I'm sitting in the peanut gallery, listening, and I took notes because I wanted to address this. Because afterwards, you had to ask questions, right? Or you were able to ask questions, and then she had, to defend your argument of the speech. And I'm sitting there, and I'm biding my time, and I'm listening, and they have any questions, and I'm sitting there, and then everybody's about done, and I didn't want to. I wanted her to think that she was off the hook, and then I raised my hand, and I'm like, so about the easier track of education that you're claiming. I said, we're in like speech class right now, aren't we? And she's like, yeah. I said, I'm a football player and I'm in the exact same class as you. And I said, as far as the scooter thing, I said, I brought that from home. Like my dad bought that for me. So I literally crushed her entire speech. I didn't feel bad about it. She kind of struck a nerve with me at that point.
Absolutely.
In the speech class. And I'm going, but yeah, like there was none of that crap. No giving out free trucks or scooters or nothing. No. It was, if we got vouchers for like meal that day, like home run. I mean, it was.
Which was legal though.
Yeah,
too.
It was legal.
Yeah.
No,
yep.
But that's frustrating.
You like this story? You're talking about class. I had a buddy that you don't think if you're saying athletes get a special privilege, that's just laughable. So my buddy forgot that there was a quiz, right? And so he sits down and he's, oh my gosh, this is midterm. And he looks over and this girl gives him a wink, right? It's like, oh, perfect. So, he's going down the test and she's freely opening, so he's copying these answers, right? 4 minutes, or when the professor goes 4 minutes left, on the test, she gives him another wink and erases all of her answers and writes in the new ones. So, there's no advantage. But the return on investment for Utah, you would think after giving $5 million for new trucks, They were 5-7 overall, 2-7 in in the conference. So, NIL money can be it can seem good, right? But like we all had to go through a struggle. Like, hey, we had $1,000. We have to figure out how we're going to make that $1,000 work and food and I feel like that builds perseverance, right, and character, right.
So we got AJ Brown. What was it? I think 3 weeks ago, I believe, reading a book on the sidelines, which changed that author's life, became the #1 hot seller on Amazon. Everyone's buying that right now. And I don't know. I mean, I've heard the more and more I hear AJ Brown talk, I like him every single interview. Sounds like it was a very motivational book. We all know everybody has their different ways of getting ready. I a little bit question, are you really reading it, though?
No.
On the sidelines? I struggle with that as well.
Again, I'm watching the game. I'm watching the defense. I'm into, call adjustments. I just don't read the guy. I just can't picture myself not being in the game. Okay, but now let me bring this up, and I'm not trying to throw you a curveball to make anybody look silly because I had no clue of this until a couple weeks ago either. And I don't know why I didn't bring it up. AJ Brown, who's a phenomenal wide receiver, has come out, I think, prior to this season starting last season, debated taking his own life. He's come out and said that in press conferences. And, between faith and therapy and this and that, he realized it's not something that should happen, rightfully so. And he's really made a turnaround in between leadership and all that. So now with that, having that knowledge to go, is he reading the book on the sidelines? I don't know. But we all know we've never seen anything like that, a book on the sidelines. We've seen some crazy stuff. We've seen people, for fans out there that don't know, if you're not an O-lineman that does disgusting ways of using a restroom on the sidelines, most people will urinate in a Ziploc bag surrounded by trainers. Mm-hmm. So if you ever see 4 or 5 trainers in a circle all holding towels, there's somebody urinating in a Ziploc bag that they're going to seal and drop in the garbage can. So there's crazier things we've seen, but a book, I think that's the first we've ever seen a book on the sidelines. Now that author, though, I don't know. I mean, actually debating getting the book. People are saying it's absolutely phenomenal, but that author, I'm sure, woke up the next morning and was like, holy cow, sales were okay.
Inner excellence.
Now they're through the roof, yeah.
Imagine, obviously now, if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, I mean, that's going to be
my Lord,
worldwide book. I mean, Good for that author, right?
Yeah.
If you'd like fresh roasted cabin coffee delivered directly to your door, go to Cabin Coffee Altoona's Facebook page or 217 South Mills Facebook page. Click on the coffee order form link, fill it out, pick out your beans, and get them delivered directly to your front door. Cabin Coffee Altoona.
Next article up, we got Joe brought up to the show that a rare gold medal from 1904 St. Louis Olympics sold for $545,000. I'm saying this wrong. We'll say just under $550,000 it sold for. Just crazy that back then Olympic medals were actually made completely out of gold as opposed to today. I believe they're gold plated, a lot less expensive as they once were.
And you remember the best part of this article was Fred Lortz.
Yes.
He won the marathon, but through investigation, he rode a car a few times, or maybe back in the day it was a horse, got on the horse.
And I said, too, there was a woman, I remember when I was a kid, and I always used to say, I bet you she's from Scranton. There was a female that won the Boston Marathon, and it turned out people had witnessed her on subways going through Boston with the number on her chest and getting back up, running, hitting another subway, getting back up. All right, this next one that we found, this has to be, now granted, this might be a little dated. I think it is. It's from October of 24. But this story is absolutely insane. The title of the article, American Woman Stranded in Pakistan After Arriving to Marry a Teenager and Demands $100,000 from the government. So long story short, let me see if I can see her name. I don't even know what her name is. She went there Nadal's who she went to marry. He's the 19-year-old. So this woman leaves America, goes to Pakistan to marry this 19-year-old kid. When she gets there, the kid and his parents vacated their house. So nobody's living in the house anymore. They just left after this 19-year-old convinced her to come. She gets over there, and obviously I'm sure she's mad about that. She starts demanding at press conferences that she needs money, that she wants to fix Pakistan. And her latest demand was that she wanted $100,000 and she needed 20 grand cash in her pocket by the end of the week. They had whatever it is in Pakistan, I don't know, president or leader or whatever. He's talking and she's shushing him, being like, enough, you talk too much. Stop talking.
No one can understand you anyway.
Yeah, yes, nobody can understand you anyway. Then she has people like she's Tom Cruise, like carrying her luggage around town. And I don't know, there was some reports that her children said she had mental issues. I don't know what's going on, but that was one of the crazier stories I've seen out there right now.
Her name is Onija or Onija.
Anjay.
Is it? I don't think it's
Anjay.
Anjay Andrew Robinson out of New York. Now, you're from the East Coast, Bill. This doesn't sound that far-fetched to me from someone from the East Coast at all, not even a little bit.
A 33-year-old woman from New York goes to Pakistan to marry a 19-year-old kid. Absolutely crazy. Well, we got a couple more things with NIL, Badgers, Packers, and sports here. Wisconsin football player sues NCAA to play on despite Division II years. So basically, what are these names? Najir Forkorian sued the NCAA on Wednesday in hopes of obtaining a court order to stop association from enforcing its 5-year rule for Division I football. Basically, this kid says he played Division II football. He wants those years back. Why does he want them back? To get NIL money in college.
Absolutely.
Because probably not going to play in the league, but he wants his NIL money in college, which everything that's happening right now has been a precedent between the NCAA, college football, NIL, transfer portal. We talked about Xavier, I forget his last name, Smith maybe, the kid so Miami was tampering with him, talking to him while he was at Wisconsin. He leaves Wisconsin. He was still under contract for NIL. And he set a precedent that I don't think it's been decided upon yet. He left Wisconsin, went to Miami. Wisconsin never allowed him to go in the transfer portal. Miami interfered with him because he was still on the Badger roster while they're talking to him, trying to get him to go to Miami. He's still under contract because he signed a contract with the Badgers to get his NIL money. This kid unenrolls from the University of Wisconsin, then enrolls as a student to the University of Miami, then joins the football team. There was no rule saying you can't do that.
Right.
Like, our whole time playing football, that could have been done. Like, think about that whole, like, you have to lose a year eligibility.
Yeah.
Technically, there was no rule because there was no precedent. This kid's the first kid to ever, now granted, it was probably his lawyer that came up with it, but first kid to ever do it. He unenrolls instead of going in the portal. I mean, they all got to be really thinking this through now, because now you got to start making rules. Because if kids are going outside the box like this, like we say there were no rules to begin with, now you're avoiding what little rules there were. It's going to set a precedent saying you are not allowed to do this in the future.
Agreed. And like I said, you got to be creative. And we've said on this podcast, it's almost like the wild, wild west out there, honestly, because the NCAA, who used to be the iron fist that when we were in college, they reigned over everything. Like, from the jobs that we could or could not have to drug tests to all the above, they were the supreme rulers of our lives. And we had to play within the confines of the NCAA asshole rules. And that's it.
Yep.
That's just the way it was. And now this guy's found a loophole, and NIL is just, hey, we're going to see what happens.
Yeah.
Throw crap at the wall and see what sticks. So,
You know, and you talk about the drug test. That's one of those. I remember the first time you got a nurse watching you pee.
yeah.
Yes.
What is that? Like, come on.
About 12 inches from you, too.
Yeah.
It's like, stop breathing so hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that close.
Yep.
Crazy. Ex-former Packer Mason Crosby retires from the NFL after 17 seasons. Crosby played with Green Bay from, well, I'm not sure what were his years. 97 through 2000. Nope, that's not him. But he played 07 through he just
42.
retired.
He played from 92 to 2007.
He had 258 games with the Packers, which was 3 more than what Brett Favre had, just to give you an idea how long he was truly there. Crosby was 81.3% on field goal attempts and 97.2% on extra points. He was just a fixture, a staple to the Packers. And you think about, there's always going to be down years with a kicker or a down game. And you hear those fans saying, like, get rid of him, get rid of him. I remember we had Ryan Longwell when I was there. And he was just money, same as Crosby. I mean, that guy was clutch, made every field goal, made every extra point. But yeah, when things go bad, fans start calling for their heads, and you see what happens when you lose a kicker that you've had for 10, 15 years, just consistent, and you're going through that battle again, trying to find somebody to help that fix that foundation.
Again, understand I'm not ripping on kickers
I'm
not. However, again, we've talked about this on the podcast. You have one job. You have one job that's all you do in practice. You're not getting your ass kicked in one-on-one drills. You're not getting your ass kicked on 7-on-7. You go out there, you do your thing early on in practice. You go down in the locker room, go wherever. I think you mentioned that they brought golf clubs.
They golf. Yeah, they golf in the indoor facility in the Don Hudson Center. Now, granted, though, we've all been close with kickers. I got to become especially close with a couple kickers and punters throughout my career. The one devil's advocate I'll give, and the other side of the story, we as linemen get 60-some opportunities. We could give up a sack and still have a great game. Right. We could give up 2 or 3 bad plays and still have a great game. If they get 2 attempts and screw up 1, they might get cut. Yeah. So there's definitely, there's a lot less they have to do and a lot less they have to practice on, but their amount of opportunity to do it is much smaller as well. So they have to be on every single time.
And, it's obviously different with the indoor kicker, right? I mean, there's no wind, but when you're kicking at Lambeau and you're kicking in 6 degrees, let's just face it, a 50-yard there is going to be a little bit different than down in Miami with.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And I think the other thing is crosswinds. Nobody, really puts that into. A lot of times when you're in the stadium, the wind is swirling.
Yes.
So good to, obviously kudos to Mason Crosby. You'll be a Packer legend forever.
Oh, absolutely. My guy, the Hammer, brought up to me, sent me an article. Ohio State athletics operated at a $37 million deficit last year. So we talk a lot. The biggest thing was we never really had a concrete number how much they bring in. So Ohio State spent just under $293 million, and it brought in just under $255 million. Did that have something to do with the national championship? I absolutely think so. They're saying on every broadcast they spent $20 million for that team. We first said it was $20 million to buy the team. I changed my attitude saying it was $20 million to retain the team, but we still stuck with the line. If they're saying $20 million, we jumped right out. It's probably more like $40 million. It's probably more like $50 million. Now we see they're at a negative $37 million deficit. And here's the issue that I think every team is going to face moving forward, that July 1st, when this rule passes, with the revenue sharing cap of $20.5 million, how are you replacing that money? You have to fundraise. If you want to just break even, you have to raise in 2025 an additional $20.5 million just to break even. If you're going to give out $20.5 to build and retain your team.
I think the best way to do that is bake sales, probably some car washes.
Cookies,
chocolate
chip cookies,
candy bars.
Get the Girl Scouts involved. I should have printed this article off. The Girl Scouts, this blew my mind the other night. The Girl Scouts raised something like, oh Lord, I think it was like $190 million off of cookie sales. Take a guess how much money went back to every single Girl Scout chapter combined in the country? $8 million.
Are you serious?
They raised 190, and then they provided back to their community of chapters, whatever they're called, $8 million.
That's insane.
Whoa.
It's an army of.
But I guess like the CEO is making a couple mil, couple million went to this, went to that. It was just like crazy. It was expenses that were so big that you're like, what's that company that they paid $3 million? Like it was, I think they paid, it was some stupid number, like $13 million for IT services. is the CEO's brother, the IT service. Like, it just seemed fishy. Like, I'll go back to college and learn IT if one organization is going to have a bill of $13 million a year. But so that's Ohio State.
I do love me some Thinman, so.
Oh, I hear you. Now, along the lines of NIL and this money and this revenue sharing, so we've been talking about Title IX. We've been talking Title IX and IRS. The Department of Education, and this is where it gets hairy, folks. Department of Education states revenue sharing payments must follow Title IX, which means if there's, let's just, for simple terms, the $20.5 million salary cap, if it's a $20 million cap per school, $10 million of it has to go to boys sports, $10 million has to go to girls sports. That's what Title IX is. They say NIL rights are classified as financial assistance. If not proportionally divided, schools would risk a Title IX violation. And they specifically mentioned the revenue sharing in 2025, and this was documented in-house via NCAA settlement. Now, here's the last thing, and we had talked about that many schools are most likely going to start 1099ing their players. Mm-hmm. Department of Education does not view compensation by a third party, in parentheses, rather than the school, to a student athlete as a Title IX violation. So if, like, Arch Manning just signed with Red Bull, that doesn't count for Title IX. Now, the way I think schools are literally going to get around this $20.5 million cap, they're going to 1099 everybody, and all that money is going to go either whatever their major, like, so at Wisconsin, it's going to go, I think, 85% to football, 10 to 15% to basketball, men's basketball.
You're going to have to.
And that's pretty much where it's going. I don't think at Wisconsin, I don't think anybody else is getting paid.
Nope, I agree with that 100%. And I think the 1099 idea is probably going to be the most legit. And I think you even went a step further and said at some point in time, it's not even going to be there's not going to be an education element to college football. It's just going to be semi-pro football or semi-pro sports is what it comes down to. Almost like farm league, basically. So,
the one thing with Ohio State here, I don't think any of this, everybody's talking about NIL and what the players are, but the coaches, Ryan Day had a $10 million salary. Chip Kelly was $2 million. Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator, $2.2. Brian Hartline, $1.6. Larry Johnson, $1.4. The DB's coach, which was an old coach of mine at Bowling Green, Tim Walton, $1.4. Long story short, roughly $22 million in salary.
Yeah. And it's also increasing since. So the coordinator that left, oh no, never mind. I was going to say the Ohio State coordinator left Ohio State, went to Penn State, but his salary, if you're saying it was 2.2, I think now he's making 3 at Penn State. So whoever they hire is probably going to be above 2.2. Everything just keeps going up, and you can't be spending that much money and then just all of a sudden, boom. Okay, now you're allowed to give another $20 million. Where's it coming from? Like, are they going to be taking loans from like hedge fund companies? Like, I mean, is that something? I don't even like. I know Kevin brought up in the past, like selling the rights, to school or to the athletics or whatever. Like, is Ohio State, for instance, going to be going to like auto loans, being like, hey, we want $20 million, but when we win $20 million in the playoffs next year, we'll give you that right away to pay it off. Like, I mean, are loan sharks going to get, like, how is this going to work?
Look like what the Dodgers are doing. I know we didn't probably talk about baseball, but they basically have $1 billion of deferred salaries out into the future. Like Shohei Ohtani's, $800 million contract, it's all out in the future.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Dumb and Dumber on the breach box of IOUs. Don't worry, I'll pay you back.
Don't lose that one.
I want to handle that one.
Exactly. All right, to change it up a little, because my son Chris is in wrestling and we're in wrestling season, my bookmaker sent me an article about Bo Bassett. Bo Bassett is a high school wrestler right now. I believe his record is 109-0 for high school, just recently committed to Iowa. Now, this kid, he went to Bishop McCourt Catholic Academy in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. This kid and his parents were very intelligent. I don't know how many years ago it was. They started recording every single workout this kid did. Mm-hmm. Once he started getting money from NIL and from sponsors, they built basically a pole barn that they turned into a wrestling center right next to their house. that has like 20 some cameras inside there. He invites people to come work out. He tests gear and singlets and shoes and this and that while he's working out, records everything and puts everything online. Here's where the NIL game is changing. Now, we talked about Dunn, the gymnast at LSU. This is a wrestler. I believe he's 17 years old right now. Committed to Iowa. They say the minimum he's getting or could get is $5 million during his career at Iowa. But the internet claims it could be as much as $10 million for an Iowa wrestler.
17 years old.
Yes.
Making that kind of money.
Think about it. There's Olympians, United States gold medal winner Olympians that probably have not made $5 million in their career. This kid's 17 and he's going to get $5 million. $5 to $10 million. And who knows what deals he's going to add on during this time there. And the other thing we keep saying, because there is no transparency, who knows what other money he's already making from Instagram, from TikTok, from X, from Facebook, from this, that, YouTube. Like, that's different money. And that's what people forget too, is there's the revenue share, which the college is paying the athlete. Then there's NIL, which could come from the college or could come from a company directly. Like Arch Manning is not getting paid Red Bull money from Texas. Red Bull's paying Arch Manning. Right. Then there's your social media platforms. You're getting paid from those social media companies. Right. The amount of money is absolutely sick. That's out there that we don't know about.
And can you imagine that making that kind of money after you're done with college? You're going to retire. For the love of God, there's nothing for you to do. You're financially set if you're smart with your money. You know, and your family is financially set. I mean, these are all things, all the risks that we took playing college football to eventually make it to the NFL, which Bill did. You know, and Bill, did you make between $5 and $10 million while you were at?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so that's the difference.
I don't think I made 1/10 of what these 17-year-olds are making.
Like, that's the thing. It's insane the amount of money. It really is.
If you'd like fresh roasted cabin coffee delivered directly to your door, go to Cabin Coffee Altoona's Facebook page or 217 South Mills Facebook page. Click on the coffee order form link, fill it out, pick out your beans, and get them delivered directly to your front door. Cabin Coffee Altoona.
Well, before we get to the Super Bowl prop bets, I also, that we just mentioned wrestling, I just want to congratulate my former high school alumni, West Grand Invaders, Cameron Bucka. He's at Wilkes University, just got his 122nd win and counting. So just a congratulations to him to wrap up the wrestling bet. But now on to Super Bowl prop bets. So everybody knows, so first off, we have the Chiefs are favored by 1.5 as of the time I printed this off. The under-over is 48.5. And then you have the typical bets, the number one, the coin toss, the Gatorade, the how long is the national anthem going to go, who's your bet to be the Super Bowl MVP, score the first touchdown, score more than 2 touchdowns. But then you got some of the funny prop bets. How many tush pushes will there be in the game? I'm saying easily 3.
Yeah.
And they don't get on this sheet that I printed off. They didn't give a under over on it. But will Travis Kelce pop the question in Taylor Swift during the game?
I know. I'm hoping so.
I know you're definitely hoping on that. Will Eagles coach Nick Sirianni cry during the national anthem? I guess he's done that once before. Coin toss, heads or tails. Which commercial will be top rated? I haven't heard a ton about commercials, but for some reason, the little bit I have heard, I've heard Doritos are allowing people to film their own commercial. And then they're going to pick the best commercial that fans filmed. So basically, they have no expense into the commercial other than paying the NFL to run, or paying the TV network to run the commercial. But I was like, that's a pretty sweet idea, and I'm sure we'll see some funny commercials out of that. But at the end of the day, I know Kevin and I, we're still waiting on you. I know you're nervous to say it because you are a business owner, but I got the Eagles. Kevin's got the Eagles.
I also got the Eagles because I'm tired of watching the flop by the Kansas City Chiefs. So, yeah, I'm kind of a fan of the Eagles also. And I think Saquon Barkley, for just, I mean, being at the Giants and not having great teams, you love seeing a guy just transfer to a different team and just explode, that we all knew that he had the capability of when he was at Penn State, and just watching him, and now actually watching him in his true form, and they're utilizing him. The dumbest mistake I think the Giants ever made was getting rid of him, but he is a stallion, just a stud.
Well, and they didn't know how to use him. They didn't know how to build an offense around him.
Right.
Like one of the stupidest lines I heard when there's that famous video of the GMs talking in the office, and he's like, why are we having a $40 million quarterback hand the ball off to a $13 million running back? And it's like, well,
because
because it gets you to the Super Bowl. That's
absolutely.
Why. You want a ring?
Yeah,
that's what you got to do. Like, I'm sorry you're paying the quarterback $40 million, but that's what you got to do. I mean, like, look at Patrick Mahomes. Like, I mean, people complain all the time about money and like, oh, athletes are overpaid. We've talked a million times before. 15 years ago, the NFL was making $10 billion a year off of TV rights. Mm-hmm. Just in the last year, they paid Amazon $13 billion to have 1 game a week or 2 games a week on Amazon Prime. The amount of money, they're sick. But you got Patrick Mahomes signed a $500 million contract. Why is he signing that much? Because they want to go to the Super Bowl, and he's been there, 3 times? This is going to be his 4th Super Bowl, I believe. He's won 2, lost 1, and now he's going into his 4th, and a chance to win 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. That's why these guys are getting paid, and because everybody that's complaining about the money is watching the game. Right. So you're watching the TV. Mm-hmm. That's where the money comes from. It is what it is. Love it, hate it, but it's a game. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Well, I just remember the 2000.com Bowl. I remember it was about $1 million per commercial, and now it's over $7 million. So think of that in 25 years.
Yeah.
Back to the betting, I will put the parlay of the week. I will say Eagles straight up. I'm going to go on the record saying Barkley's going to score a touchdown, and I think the running back for the Chiefs, Hunt, is going to score a touchdown. And I think the difference maker for everybody watching, we talked about it where it didn't record due to our IT failures last week. But the running quarterbacks have definitely made a difference. During the playoffs, there was during the conference championships games, there were 6 rushing touchdowns by quarterbacks. Yeah. And all 4 running backs, quarterbacks were running. So if you're building a team, number 1, you got to be able to run the ball. Number 2, you got to have a mobile quarterback. Otherwise, it's a challenge. So I'm going to say there's definitely going to be 3 game-changing first downs by a running quarterback.
I also think, to build into Bill's conspiracy theory, we have to see how many flags the officials are going to throw late, depending on the outcome of the play.
And here's my thing. So the Chiefs are there. You would have to believe that the officials and Patrick Mahomes have gotten a stern talking to over the last 2 weeks. Don't throw stupid flags. And to Mahomes, do not do this bullshit on the sidelines.
You think they're going to say that to him?
I think that's what everybody's looking for.
He's the golden boy.
Well, we're going to see on Sunday. But I think if it happens on Sunday.
You have Taylor Swift in the box, man.
I understand what you're saying. But think about this. If he flops one time on Sunday and there's one questionable call by the officials where we could see plain as day that they made a mistake, I think football fans are going to lose their mind.
I agree.
Like, it's boiling over as we speak right now. Mm-hmm. The majority of it is conspiracy, I'll give you. Right. But if it happens on Sunday, a flop and a bad call.
But
I don't know.
I read an article that people are boycotting the
I know. We had that. But are they really? I mean, I don't know. I think people like to talk in this country a lot more than do shit. I don't think people are not going to watch this.
So they're talkers, not doers?
I think there's a lot of talkers.
So do you think, are you going to say it right now? Are you going to say that there's going to be, let's say, a pass interference, maybe on a game-winning drive to set them up for a field goal?
See, I don't think there is going to be. I think if there is, I think people are going to lose their minds. I mean, I think it'll be talked about for the next 8 months. I think you need 2 things to happen. I mean, one, I could see a pass interference. I could see a questionable thing with Mahomes. But if there's Mahomes and a bad call by an official that we all know watching the game is a bad call, if those 2 things happen in the same game, I think people lose their minds. Because one, you could be like, well, now you're talking conspiracy, like, it's subjective, blah, blah, blah. But if 2 things happen, I think people lose their minds. Now, Joe, I like that parlay Kevin brought up. How about for the fans, take out your credit card, let's place a bet on that parlay, and we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah, I'm good.
Come on, we could take your credit card. We could place the bet.
You have a credit card? We can use your.
I don't have one on me.
I don't either. I left it in the trunk.
You know, the other interesting thing is Xavier Worthy. He set the combine record with what was it, 4.22 40? Anyway, 4.2.
4.2. Yeah.
He's the receiver for the Chiefs. He's got roughly 6 touchdowns. He's a speed demon. He might be that, if you're looking for that a little extra bet, Xavier Worthy for a touchdown.
True.
Yeah, I think the touchdowns are always – I think that's a tough one to bet on the Super Bowl. Everyone's trying to do different plays with their offense, trying to catch people off guard. I mean, God, like for how much I want to say Saquon, you know, like you just keep seeing all these highlights about Saquon, but do they open it up with a big pass on first down instead of traditional running the ball on first down to calm everybody down, get the 4 yards, whatever? Do they launch one? And now you got a receiver getting that first touchdown pass and screwing people's bets. But you never know. That's why it's gambling. That's why I don't do it.
All right, let's get to the real. What is the best food, tailgate food, that you would like to have for Super Bowl?
I can tell you the best tailgate food I've ever had before.
Okay, what is that?
So my brother-in-law lived in North Carolina. We went. I went down over the down or over. I don't know. Went and saw him, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. They know how to tailgate in North Carolina because they had oysters like that. I had to go shuck oysters. Wow. I pulled up to a table. This guy had an entire truck bed full of oysters, and they're making oysters, and I'm like shucking my own oysters, eating them out of the shell. It was freaking amazing. I've never seen it before in my life.
I will say the South's different. Like when I was in Carolina, I went to a Badger, North Carolina football game. Like they have ceiling fans in the stadium. Mm-hmm. Like you're sitting there and we're like the upper deck. There's like ceiling fans. Girls are wearing dresses. The football game, like it's and I don't even think North Carolina was big time South, especially back then. I'd love to go to a game like in the deep South, like a Tennessee, a Texas, whatever. Like it just the atmosphere is different. I don't know. To me, it's the finger food. The one food that I'll still never wrap my head around, and I do eat it from time to time is what do they call them? Cowboy whatever.
Cowboy dip, the queso dip?
Cowboy caviar?
Cowboy caviar. The raw meat.
Oh, no, that's Wildcat.
Wildcat.
You haven't had Wildcat?
I've had it before since being in Wisconsin. Never heard of it prior to getting to Wisconsin. Never heard of it.
Town Line Foods, that's the best Wildcat you're going to get in the country.
So, and maybe we'll have to get it for this weekend. But me and John Sigmund, we did some sort of event where we got asked, like, go speak, or it was an auction or something after our senior year. And we go there, and they had that. And John freaks out, starts bringing up mad cow disease to everybody at the event. I'm like, John, shut up. Don't eat it. You know, we don't have to talk about that. But I've tried it before. I mean, it is good, but it's like hard to wrap my head around that. Like, you're not supposed to eat raw meat, but then everybody's eating it and it tastes good.
Wow.
But you're not supposed to eat raw meat, but it tastes good. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's like, let's go back to Rocky and just start pouring eggs in glasses and drinking eggs again. Like, I don't know, but it tastes good.
And in Wisconsin, I mean, you got to have the brat, right?
Yeah. Hamburgers are always a classic.
Absolutely. And then, old grandma always had the tater tot casserole.
But tailgates?
Well, she's
like for the
crock pot, Super Bowl meal.
Super Bowl meal, that'd be good. Yeah, those are kind of your standard. And then you have like the dips of a various assortment of dips. I'm not really a fan of the dip. I'm more of the brat burger kind of guy. And potato salad, macaroni salad, but
you got to fill up. You're sitting on the couch.
Yeah,
you might as well fill up, carb load, get your protein and carbs. Sit down, enjoy the game.
See, I was waiting for the Pennsylvania guy. If there was arrows pointing this way, talking about that Philly cheesesteak,
see, that's not a
you go to pizza.
All right, whoa, exactly. Now wait a second. See, he brings up he used the word tailgate food for the Super Bowl. I understood he didn't mean tailgate. He means having food at the Super Bowl. That's not even in the realm of we want to have a cheesesteak and pizza conversation. That's a whole podcast.
You gotta have the gabagool. Come on.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we are wrapped up for this episode. Everybody enjoy your Super Bowl. We'll be back talking about the Eagles' victorious game and how crazy Philly gets. They're already greasing. Did you see they're greasing the poles down in Philadelphia?
Yeah, because did someone fall? I'm like,
Somebody, kid from Temple died.
fell off a light pole.
Yeah, but they do that whenever a Philly team makes it far. They grease the poles. People like climbing shit in Philly. You know, like who is it? Dodgers or whoever. Like they flip cars. Like we don't flip cars. We don't burn stuff. But just everybody wants to climb on things when they do good. So
interesting. All right, this episode is brought to you by our sponsor, Cabin Coffee in Altoona, located at 2922 Meadowlark Lane in Altoona, Wisconsin.
And Pizza Del Rey in Eau Claire. Stay tuned next time.
Have a good one, folks.
Thank you for listening to another episode of 217 South Mills.
If you like what you heard, smash the like and follow buttons on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and X.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cabin Coffee Altoona. Tune in next time, folks.